Can you have too many oracle decks? I didn't actually realise how many I had until coming to do this video, and I've just counted and I've actually got 17. Oops. Anyway, if you love oracle decks or you're just getting into oracle decks and you like to see what other people have, stick around because I'm going to share with you my full 17 oracle deck collection. Hi, I'm Sally and welcome to my channel Vaudeville Manor, House of Art and Tarot. And by tarot I also mean oracle decks because as well as being a fan of tarot, I'm also a big fan and apparently now a collector of oracle decks. I have done a full review on my tarot deck collection, which I will link up here. That was a bit more thorough, but because I've got so many and I don't want this video to be too long, I'm probably not going to include quite as much information about each of the decks, and I'm going to group them into publishers. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive right in and talk about the decks. I'm going to start with Rockpool Publishing, based in Australia. I've got to be honest, out of all the commercial deck producers, they are my favourites because they include beautiful colour illustration books. For some people that might not be important, but I don't know, because I'm a visual person, I really appreciate the extra effort they've gone to create a book that is just as nice as the cards. First up, the Divine Animals Oracle by Stacey Demarco. This is a 44 card deck, digital artwork, mostly using photographic imageries, which has been blended and layered together by Kinga Britschke, I think that's how that's pronounced. And the deck is all about working with animal guides and kind of animal magic, and there's quite a big write-up, like about 3 pages on each of the animals. So you have a bit about like the mythology of the animal and how it connects to gods and goddesses, a bit about the animal itself and the energies of that animal, a little bit about the magic that you could use by working with that animal guide, common symbols for the animal, and status. At the beginning of the book, Stacey acknowledges that, you know, whilst we all rely on animals, actually a lot of our animals are in trouble, to be aware that, you know, we have these beautiful animals and actually a lot of them are endangered, which I think was a really nice touch for her to include that, to sort of build this awareness that we shouldn't be taking these animals for granted. This was actually the first oracle deck that I bought. I hadn't really established the kind of decks that I thought I'd be wanting to work with, and actually at that point I didn't realise it was going to become an obsession. I do like the artwork, and it was the artwork that drew me in, but I think as I've gone on this journey I've found that I think I prefer the more hand-drawn or kind of traditional art, which I know is a bit weird because I am producing a digital deck of my own, but I feel like my digital art more closely resembles hand-drawn art as opposed to the more photographic and layered up images. It's not to say that I don't like them, I just connect more with the more hand-drawn artwork. I don't know, it's something about you know, if you've ever been to an art gallery, being close to a piece of artwork, that sort of connection that somebody's hand has done that rather than having a screen. I don't know. Let me know, what do you think? Next up, also by Rockpool, is the Wild Woman Oracle by Cheyenne Zarate. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. So Cheyenne is the author and the artist of this deck, and it's a 36 card deck. This deck has been inspired by the idea of the rewilding of the woman, and the idea that a lot of women kind of hide who they are to fit in with societal norms, to fit in with patriarchy, and things that you can do to try and, well, rewild yourself, which I think is a lovely concept, because I think particularly in the Western world where we live in houses, we're on our devices, perhaps some women haven't had the opportunity to connect with nature. And I know kind of spirituality is growing, and you know, that's why oracle decks and tarot is becoming more popular, because it gives us a way of tapping into nature and intuition, and this deck has been designed to help us do that. So this deck has an interesting balance between different types of archetypal goddesses, so the Morrigan, Ostara, but then also being your own personal goddess, so sort of being at home and taking time out to reflect, or being creative, and sort of little steps that we as women can do to kind of find our true, authentic, wild self, if you like. These are drawn images in black and white, very linear. There's lots of mark making here. There's actually a lot of detail held within these cards, and they're quite simple, but I think it's a really nice way of representing the theme of the deck. The Celtic Spirit Oracle by Nicola Macintosh. Again, Nicola has written and produced the artwork for this deck, and this is all about really going back to nature, connecting with natural spirits, natural energies. This is a very earthy, grounded deck. This is also a 36 card deck. The artwork is kind of simply drawn with, you know, with necessary detail overlaid over the top, but there's a lot of beautiful natural colours, so a lot of greens and a lot of browns, and I feel quite at home with this deck. It's quite a positive deck as well, and lots of sort of encouraging guidance from the natural world. There does feel like there's this ancient presence when you're reading with these cards, and I find that quite comforting, sort of, you know, taking back a few steps, and you do feel like you're getting direct messages from ancestors. Next up from Rockpool is a series which is, of course, the Season of the Witch. I have 4 of the 8, however only 7 of them have been published. I believe the Ostara deck is coming out early next year, but I have Samhain, Beltane. Now they were illustrated by Giada Rose. The other 2, Mabon deck and Imbolc, so they were illustrated by Tijana Lukovic, which these are, I mean, all of the illustrations are stunning, and I think that's one of the things that drew me in. As I've said before, it's a lot about the artwork. If I like the artwork, that's what gets me interested in the deck. But also, prior to getting these, and before I was doing, or whilst I was developing the Tuxedo Circus, I was looking at the season of the year, and that's what these decks are all about. So if you're getting into more pagan ways of looking and trying to connect to nature, these decks are perfect for that. So each of the decks are connected to one of the 8 pagan Sabbats on the wheel of the year, and also it's quite a seasonal thing, and each of them have a very strong identity. So at the time of filming, we're about a week away from Mabon, which is the autumn/fall equinox, so we're expecting to be starting to see those lovely autumnal colours, and that deck is full of that sort of warmth that you get from this season. Obviously, going into Samhain, it starts to get a little bit darker, and they all have very strong visual identity, and I absolutely love the illustrations from both of the artists. They're really gorgeous, and they're really interesting readings, because not only do you get keywords, you also get a poem/affirmation. I think the authors Lorraine and Juliet Diaz have been experimenting with them, but experimenting with these little sort of phrases to help sum up the overall energy of the cards. These go deep, so when you work with these, prepared to have your soul looked at, if you like. They're very powerful messages that you get from these, and I think that's probably why they're so popular and why they resonate with a lot of people. I do hope to get the full collection you have to, don't you? You can't just have half of a piece of work and not get all of it. So very much looking forward to getting all of those and using them to explore and expand upon my knowledge of the season of the year, because fundamentally that's why I got these, to help me understand each of the seasons more thoroughly. Now, moving on to the decks that I have from Hay House. So Hay House, another big publisher when it comes to tarot and oracle decks. Unlike Rockpool, they don't tend to have colour images in their booklets. That's why I prefer Rockpool. However, they do have a vast collection of decks. And I'm going to start with this one here from one of my favourite tarot creators, which is MJ Cullinane, and she has written the book and created the images. This is a 54 card deck. If you are fascinated by crows and their characters and their personalities, this is a really, I want to say, fun deck to work with, but it's also quite a dark deck. The crows aren't afraid to tell you exactly what you need to know, and I kind of find because I also have the Enchanted for Haxa Tarot by MJ Cullinane. Both of these decks have this underlying sort of cautionary tale vibe about them. It's like, do this but with this caution, or maybe that's just the message that her decks need to give to me. But I do love her artwork. This was the last card that I drew from this deck. Like the Mabon deck that I was talking about, this is a very muted and earthy deck, so lots of kind of muted greens and oranges, which kind of underpins this sort of vibe that the crows are going to give. She created this deck by observing the crows in her neighbourhood, and they inspired her to use this sort of channel the ways that they are and apply it to our lives, which is really fascinating. You get a whole host of crows in different situations and how they navigate life and the lessons that we can learn from them. And I think if you love crows, you will also love this deck too. Also from Hay House, this is the Tree of Life Oracle by David Wells and illustrated by Roberta Orpwood. This was like a double whammy getting this deck. I kind of found out about the Tree of Life in the Ultimate Guide to Tarot book, which is a really comprehensive book on the Rider-Waite-Smith. I've briefly talked about it in one of my other videos, but if you want to know more about that deck in particular, it goes through all the symbology, all the meanings, including the connection to the Kabbalah, which is the Tree of Life. As I like learning, I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. So I wanted to get this deck to help me learn more about the Tree of Life. Another reason I was interested in getting this deck is because I absolutely love the artwork by Roberta here. I discovered her on Etsy ages ago. I think her shop is called Soulbird Art. And she did some really beautiful illustrations based on the 12 astrology signs, and I hadn't got round to getting a piece of her artwork, and when I saw this I thought, oh wow, there's like 44 cards in this deck, so I can get 44 mini bits of artwork, and which I was really excited about. And this deck didn't disappoint. As you can see, there's a lot of beautiful layers, beautiful colours. This Tree of Life is about the energies that are impacting on our life and the different paths we can take, the different influences, and it's this whole holistic approach to basically working out what's going on in our life. Obviously a bit like tarot. If you have this deck, or if you know anything about the Tree of Life, you'll also know that some of the aspects on the Tree of Life are actually the major arcana from the tarot, and they're called paths, and they are also interlinked with the symbols that are a part of the Tree of Life. So it's really fascinating. I haven't got very far with learning it. Obviously I've got a lot of decks, so I haven't worked with this one for a while, but now I'm doing this review, I'm quite keen to get back in and using the Tree of Life guidance. I think David Wells puts in his book, it's a really good way if you're feeling a little bit off track. You can use the readings to help you sort of draw you back, and it's a very spiritual deck as well. I think if you think about energies, a lot of the colours are very reminiscent of the colours of the chakras as well, so it all sort of brings it all together. And if you like the idea of something a bit more holistic, this would probably be a really good deck to go for. We have here the Starseed Oracle by Rebecca Campbell and artwork created by Danielle Knoll. This is a 53 card deck, and it is actually a digital illustration, and I know I said I wasn't that keen on these, but I think this is the one example where I actually adore the digital illustrations on these, and I just think it's their pure cosmic vibe that they have. You can get really absorbed in the image that you're confronted with. Like with most things, I found out about starseeds, and again, oh, that sounds interesting, and so I sort of eyed up this deck for ages, and then eventually I just decided to get it because I was fascinated by the idea of a starseed. If you're not familiar with Rebecca Campbell or Starseed, so Rebecca Campbell is a mystic. She has books and oracle decks which help people to explore their more spiritual side. This deck in particular is about nourishing your soul and finding out what your soul calling is, and really talks you through the idea of a starseed. So a starseed is the idea that there are souls out there. So you may have heard the saying, oh, I'm an old soul, and I suppose that links with that really. So souls that have been not only on planet Earth reincarnating over and over again, but perhaps souls that have lived in other parts of the universe. And the idea is that the soul of the starseed has chosen to come to planet Earth right here, right now, to help, say, humanity. Obviously we're in a tricky situation at the moment, and raise the vibration of humanity, which I think is really beautiful. And if you're not familiar with Rebecca's work, she writes things in such a beautiful way that it's really quite inspiring. There are some activation points, so when you draw a card there'll be some keywords, but there's actually an activation of something that you can do to help you on your journey. It's a really fascinating deck, and I've enjoyed working with it. I should say, unlike any other of these oracle decks, it has this V shape, and the idea is that when you do readings you can place your cards and sort of use it as a stand, which is quite a nice touch. Continuing with Hay House, I'm going to lump the next two together because they are two of the Moonology decks from the series by Yasmin Boland. She's got several decks out now, so I have the original Moonology Oracle card deck, and these are beautifully illustrated by Nyx Rowan. There are 44 cards in this deck, and this specifically looks at all of the moon phases, full and new, and there's some special moon cards in there as well. Whereas the manifestation version, which I think was the second one she brought out, this is digital artwork by Laurie Menner, and this one, whilst there's a big overlap, the main difference is this one hasn't got the special moon cards, but it has got a card for the first quarter and the last quarter, so the energies that you would expect to experience when the moon is in those in-between phases between the new and the full moon. So I ended up getting both of them because I couldn't actually decide which one I wanted, and it was that kind of fear of missing out thing. I knew whichever one that I went for, I would probably think, oh, I wish I'd got the other one now. And I watched a load of comparison reviews and just decided actually the best option was to get both of them. And a lot of people said that they like to use them as like one big super deck. I haven't yet done that, and I don't use these a great deal. I don't know why, I just have struggled with kind of connecting with the cards and kind of the meanings, and I think it's because I find I love Yasmin Boland. I think she's great, and I'm glad that she's doing the work that she's doing, but I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm too sensitive, but I find the write-ups quite like you're being shaken by the shoulders, like this, you need to do this information, and I think I need something a little bit more gentle. So what I'm doing now is using these cards as a quick reference if we've got a full moon, for instance, rather than sort of going through the Moonology book, which I also have, I just use this as a quick reference to sort of try and tune in with those energies and try to be mindful of what that moon is teaching us. Sticking with Hay House for a little bit longer, I'm just going to flash these up quickly. I actually talked about these in my last video, which I will link up here because I haven't opened these, and that video explains that very quickly. We have pocket edition of the Herbal Astrology by Adriana Ayales. I think I pronounced it incorrectly last time. I might still be pronouncing it incorrectly, so apologies if I have. Angels and Ancestors, again pocket edition by Kyle Gray. The Rooted Woman by Sharon Blackie. Changing it up a little bit, this is Heavenly Bodies Astrology by Lily Ashwell, and this was published by Circo Books. This is actually the box that the cards come in. The cards and the book come in a slightly bigger box here with a sleeve. Primarily I got this one because I wanted to gain a little bit more insight into astrology and birth charts and things. The book that I've got, even though it had loads of pictures in it, still way over my head. I thought maybe working with an oracle deck might help me to understand astrology a little bit more. And I've got to be honest, reading this book, in the first few pages alone, I felt like I understood astrology far more than I had ploughing through the other book that I had. If you want a simple explanation as to how astrology works, I would really recommend getting this. Not only that, the artwork is absolutely gorgeous, and it's these very pastel-y, gentle colours. This was never actually intended as to be a published oracle deck. This was simply Lily creating these bits of artwork for herself to learn and become better at understanding astrology. So this comes out of a need for somebody else, and then I think it's quite beautiful that she's now been able to share it with other people. There are 51 cards in this deck, and it contains information about the zodiac signs, the houses, the planets, and there's some extra information in there which you would typically find on a birth chart. So I really love this deck. I don't use it enough, and I think it's just because it's been hidden away, but actually doing this review has sort of prompted me to think, actually, yeah, I kind of need to use that. And last but not least, the Tree Wisdom cards from Lisa Mcloughlin, and this is an indie deck. You can only get this from Lisa's shop. I'm not going to say a great deal about this. I talked about this in my previous video. Again, I'll link it up here if you are interested. Thank you so much for joining me today, hanging out and checking out my oracle deck collection. I find it quite useful seeing what people have in their collections, but more so why they chose those decks and what drew them in. So I hope that was useful, particularly if there are decks that you've maybe had your eye on and you're not sure, and perhaps maybe something I've said has either resonated with you or actually put you off a deck, although I hope I haven't put you off getting a deck. If you enjoyed this video today, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like. Feel free to share it, and if you'd like more tarot and oracle related content from me, then remember to subscribe to my channel for future videos. And until the next video, happy tarot reading, happy art making, whatever it is your vibe is, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.